Hello students and welcome to chapter 1.6 Multinational Companies. So this is the final chapter in topic 1, Introduction to Business, and there's only one video in this chapter, and the reason for that is because there's actually only one learning objective. So we're going to cover that learning objective fairly quickly in this video. So first off, let's define what a multinational company is. I think we probably have an idea of it, but the official definition is a company that operates in more than one country. So multinational, multi meaning many, national here meaning a country. So they operate in more than one country and they have the headquarters located in the home country and other operations in another country. So to give you an example, maybe we've got a business that's got a headquarters in Germany. So this is like their home country, if you like. Maybe they've offshored production to Italy, so they've got factory there, and then they've got a service center in Switzerland, for example. So in this situation, any country that's got a headquarters in one country and then moved to another country with part of their business. And there are many reasons why businesses might want to expand to another country, for example, access to new customers, lower cost of production, and maybe to avoid import restrictions so they can get around tariffs or tax on imports in different countries. And I've gone through that really quickly because that's kind of dealt with in 4.6 international marketing. It's also dealt with to some extent in 5.4 location. So that's covered there. So I don't want to cover that again because it's covered elsewhere in the syllabus. So what exactly is covered in this chapter? Well, the learning objective is the impact of the multinational company on the host country. So what does that mean? Well, the host country is the country that the business is actually moving into. So for example, if Apple were to move their production to Mexico, I don't believe they are, this is just an example. So if they move their production to Mexico, then Mexico would be the host country. So when you do 4.6 international marketing and 5.4 location, you'll look at this from the perspective of the business. So what are the pros and cons for Apple of doing this? This chapter, however, looks at the impact on the country. So what are the positive and negative impacts for the host country, which in this situation would be Mexico? I would say this is actually that business related, but there is some business content, so I will focus on that. So what are the positive impacts on the host country? Well, the two first ones are the impact on jobs and training opportunities. So if the business moves into the host country, then they're going to be opening shops or factories and creating jobs for that country, which is obviously beneficial because then their unemployment rate will go down. Hopefully, they'll also provide training opportunities for these local employees. So they'll be hiring local employees in theory. And then when they join the company, maybe they do induction training, maybe they do on-the-job training in order to train them up to be able to do their job. So it could lead to an increase in the human capital within that business, within that country, sorry. Next, the multinational company might buy inputs locally. So maybe they get their electricity. Maybe if they're a car company, maybe they're buying glass, metal, rubber to produce their cars. So as well as actually producing, having more production because they're producing, they're also going to be buying potentially more from local businesses, which obviously leads to better economic situations for those local businesses. Boost the economy, so there's going to be more production, so GDP goes up, which is good for the economy. And then in theory, the taxes paid to the government should go up. So in theory, we'll get to this later, as the multinational company makes profit in that country, then they'll pay a percentage of that profit to the government in corporation tax. Now, that's not always the case, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. Increase consumer choice. So by bringing in another business, then consumers will have more choice, and then also enhance competition for the local businesses. And again, we'll touch on this later, but the possible positive impact is that the increased competition means that the local businesses now have to become better in order to compete. So it's like an incentive to improve so you can compete with the foreign entrants. Some possible negative impacts are the possible bankruptcy of local businesses who can't compete. So when the multinational company comes in, maybe the local businesses who are competitors are not able to compete. Maybe they have an inferior product or higher prices, and therefore that leads to bankruptcy, which is obviously bad for the local economy because then jobs are lost, etc., etc. Next, a possible depletion of non-renewable resources in the host country. Again, not necessarily, but it could be that the multinational company comes into that country so that they can use the resources from that country, specifically the non-renewable resources. And that's obviously going to be bad for the environment in that country. Possible negative impact on the environment. There's something called where you can export pollution. So if they're currently in a country producing and then they have strict environmental laws, then if they move their factory to a country with weaker environmental laws, then all they're doing is moving the country that they pollute in. So this would be potentially bad for the host country because pollution levels would go up. And then finally, a possibility of erosion of the local culture. There's a word for this, is the McDonald'sization. And here you can see this is in China, where the idea is that everything becomes the same. So we have McDonald's in every country, so every country kind of becomes similar, rather than having local businesses which are, more about the culture of that country. So what are some factors determining whether the impact will be positive or negative? So again, the way of saying this is when the multinational company goes into the host country, what are the factors that's going to determine whether it's good or bad for the host country? Well, there's so many of these. Let's go through a few. One is how much respect do they give to the local culture? So if they come in and just, they adapt the product to the local culture and they respect it, then that's probably going to have a better impact on the country. Whether corporation tax is paid in the country. There's a typo there. So sometimes multinational companies can move their profits around to different countries, and they can actually pay zero tax in some countries. So obviously that's not going to be a positive. Whether they hire local employees or bring employees in from the headquarters. So they may end up opening the business in the new country, in the host country, but just bringing their employees from overseas. And so that wouldn't necessarily lead to a boost in jobs. And then finally, what sort of labor conditions they use. So are they exploiting the local workforce, or are they treating them ethically? One more. Can local businesses survive and thrive? So are the local businesses, do they go bankrupt? If they go bankrupt, then obviously that's bad for competition, and that leads to fewer choices for consumers. So a quick example there is over the last number of decades, in India, they've made it difficult for Walmart and Amazon to go into that country, because generally if Walmart goes into a new country, then they're able to undercut the local companies, and a lot of companies might go bankrupt. And so the Indian government, they didn't ban these companies, but they tried to make it difficult for them to operate, so that they were trying to favor the local businesses. All right, that's that chapter done. I'll see you next time.